Hey folks, well, I'm sweaty, just got done my workout. It's pretty cool having the gym out to yourself, you know. I got a pretty boss home gym here, and when I get the chance to work out in it by myself, I kind of like that. Put the music on that I like and do what I want. So tonight we're going to talk, kind of take our series, I guess it's kind of turning into a series of understanding training, exercise, how to put together a workout, kind of on to phase two. So if you caught the video last week, we talked about the 3 phases of an exercise workout or of a workout session. And those 3 phases I like to describe are the activation phase, where we're getting ready for the workout, the imposed demand phase, which most people term as the workout, and these are the exercises you do to cause your body to adapt the way you want it to. And then the 3rd phase, the recovery. Well, we're going to dive in a little bit deeper, specifically to the imposed demand phase, and give you some idea of how to choose exercises or how to make sure that you get a total body workout. Now, where I'm coming from in terms of my perspective, the way I'm talking about it is I'm talking about how to look at a workout for guys like me. And what do I mean guys like me? Well, guys and ladies like me. And so what's my goal? I used to play football, used to compete in bodybuilding, used to compete in powerlifting, and when I trained for those sports, I had very, very specific goals in mind. And now when people ask me, you know, what am I training for? I'm training 1, to not get fat, and 2, to be able to chase my kids around a playground. So my training has a lot more total body type of work in it, because the other big pressure I fall under, I'm sure all you do out there, is time. I've only been able to squeeze out 24 hours a day, and unfortunately I gotta reserve a few of those for sleeping, a couple of those for some eating now and again, and sometimes those get pretty thin, and definitely some family time, so it really limits, you know, the 3-hour workouts I used to enjoy back in my teens and early 20s. So today we're going to talk about selecting exercises, and even a step further back from that is we're going to look at movements. And I like to keep things simple, and the way I like to think about it is there's really only 6 movements that your body makes, and everything that you do in life is either one of or a combination, more likely, of those 6 basic movements. And so when you're picking exercises, what I recommend is that you pick an exercise that covers each one of those movements. Now, sometimes you get exercises that cover multiple movements, but we'll talk about that at a later date. So first of all, there's 2 basic upper body movements that I like to think about, and those are pushing and pulling. So you can either push things away from you, or you can pull things toward you. Now, to my mind, that also counts as a push-up, where you're pushing yourself away from something, or a pull-up where you're pulling yourself up towards a bar. So when you're thinking about how to train upper body, think, okay, I want to make sure I have some kind of movement where I'm either pushing an object away from myself, you know, a bench press, a shoulder press, a machine press, a push-up, any kind of pressing movement. And then I also want to make sure that I program or include an exercise there I'm pulling something towards me, or I'm pulling myself up towards something. As I talked about, you know, a chin-up, a pull-up. You can do an inverted row, you could do a traditional row, a dumbbell row, a seated row, you know, any kind of pulling movement. So that's the kind of way I think about upper body. Now, lower body, conveniently, also breaks into 2 basic movement patterns as well. There's a squat, which essentially definition is you're moving your body up and down. And if you look at the movement of your lower body, there's a whole lot of knee flexion. Your knee will go through a range of motion from 0 all the way down to 90 and past 90 degrees. The second motion is what's known as a hinge. Now, a hinge is analogous to picking something up off the ground, okay? The most traditional hinge movement that you're gonna see out there is something called a deadlift, where you're pulling a bar straight off the ground. Now, from a mechanics standpoint, a hinge, your hips, your waist go back and forth, and there's a lot of hip motion. In a hinge, there's very little knee motion. The opposite is with a squat, there's a whole lot of knee motion, not a lot of hip motion, and your hips or your bum goes up and down. So with a squat, you're taking your bum up and down. With a hinge, you're taking your bum back and forth. So that's kind of the way that I like to break down lower body movement. So if we're programming a workout, we're going to push something away from us, we're going to pull something towards us, we're going to squat, move our body up and down, and we're going to hinge. We're going to pick something up off the ground, okay? 2 more movements. Now, the 5th movement is what I like to call resist motion. You're actually not producing motion, you're going to resist motion. And this really is a function of your core. Now, without getting into too deep of anatomical dissection, when people usually think about the core, the very first thing they think of the abs, and more specifically, the nice little bumpy ones out front, called the rectus abdominis, are the ones that give you that little six-pack and everybody's looking for. So it's a little bit more complicated than that, but without going too deep, the core really is a collection of muscles. That makes up your abs, which is 4 different layers of muscles. All the muscles of your pelvic floor, which they act as a sling, and they kind of hold all your pelvic organs and your guts up inside from falling out the bottom of your pelvis. And then the third group, or the posterior part, of the muscles of your lumbar and your mid-back. Now, all those muscles, they work together to stabilize or resist movement. They also work to transmit movement. So for example, when you're doing a squat and you got the bar up on your shoulders, well, the force is being generated through your legs. So that force has to make out to the board, and it gets transmitted through the core, okay? And so when we choose exercises to work the core, we want to think about resisting motion. That's things like planks, rollouts, hail-off presses, anything where you're resisting or tightening or squeezing or stabilizing that core. Okay, so that's the fifth. So make sure we include something like that. Now, the last motion is movement, and that can be considered a number of ways. You know, that's walking, that's running, that's pushing a weight, that's pulling a weight, that's carrying a weight. And movement is super important because it requires significant coordination of all those muscle groups. You think about when you walk carrying something, well, you got to activate the muscles that hold that object together. You got to activate your core to stabilize. You got to knee flex and hinge. You got to extend the hip and flex the knee to be able to drive yourself forward. And that really is a coordination, and that's important. It's probably the one that gets most overlooked when people are putting together training programs. Now, commercial gyms are getting better and better, and you're seeing more and more things like sleds and water tubes and water balls and things to move around and make that movement a little bit more challenging, and that's a very, very good thing. So again, to sum up, keep it simple. When you're getting back into exercise, make sure that you have an activation period to help you transition, get ready for workout. During your imposed demand phase, or when you're trying to cause the adaptation, make sure you push something away from you, you pull something towards you, you move your body up and down, you pick something up off the ground, you resist movement or you stabilize, and you actually move over distance, move some kind of weight over a distance. You do those 6 things with those other 3 phases with a little bit of recovery work at the end, you're probably gonna have a pretty good workout. Try and keep it fairly simple, don't overcomplicate it. So that's kind of it for today. Next week, what I'm gonna be talking about is I'm gonna be talking about how we actually can train those 6 different movements and the differences between training for power, training for strength, training for hypertrophy or muscle growth, and training for muscular endurance, some of the adaptations that happen and some of the ways you want to think about training them. So that's it for me. I'm going to get finished off my workout and probably get cleaned up and head home. But I hope everybody has a great night, and look forward to talking to you all again real soon. Thanks for tuning in. Take care.